We are back on air with Rare with another episode, but y'all already know if you not already, follow us on Instagram and YouTube at Rare Footage Sports. And to keep up with the number one source for sports, follow us on X at Rare Footage News. Today, we got my guy, one of the best hoopers to play in the city. Did a lot of damage in high school, did a lot of damage in the Big Five. With no further ado, VCU's men's assistant coach, Ryan Daly. What's going on, coach?
Hey, what's up, man? How are you? Good to see you. Good. Thank you for telling me that I did damage. My kids now that I coach, they don't believe that I used to hoop it a little bit, even though I'm only 27. But I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me.
Oh, oh man, they're blessed to have you as a father, man. So Ryan, as a senior, you averaged 22 points and 7 rebounds. You also made 65 3-pointers. You were named the PCL MVP and the City Player of the Year. Can you take us back to that year and speak on your senior campaign?
Yeah, I think my junior year, I wasn't all Catholic. We had Derek Jones, Josh Sharkey, Dave Beatty. The league was really good. I was probably our third or fourth leading scorer my junior year. And then my senior year, Derek graduated. It helps when you play with Josh Sharkey because he'll give you the ball and, kind of get out of your way. Put up some numbers, obviously. I look back, I think that was probably the summer that changed my life going into my senior year. I think I changed my everything about my approach. I think I was kind of cool with taking a back seat to everyone. And then, I would say that senior year, I kind of took it upon myself, with Sharkey and a few other teammates I had kind of make it a memorable year. And we finished second. Josh was all city. I was, city player of the year or whatever. So I think it was a great year, and a year that I never saw coming, to be honest with you, as a player. Just kind
Mm.
of going from the shadows to, player of the year in the city of Philadelphia is a pretty big step up. But I think, none of that would have happened without the people around me and my teammates and my family and my coaches who kind of believed it was possible.
That's it. You took the my next question right out my mouth. So like going into your senior year, did you not like have hopes of being the PCL MVP and City Player of the Year? Because that's like, being a PCL MVP is a big deal. Like, did you have plans on having a successful year like that? Was that in the plans?
I wouldn't say it was in the plans. I thought I was better than I probably showed my junior year, whether that was fit, role, or whatever. I thought I was probably better. So I knew, it was possible to be, I just wanted to be an all Catholic player. 25 players make it. So the year before, I wasn't one of the top 25 players in the league. So yeah, I would say that, like, did I see that my basketball journey, the way it unfolded? No, I had no scholarship offers. I actually played through that senior season committed, but I was going to walk on at Hartford.
Mm.
A lot happened that year. I kind of took off, so I was able to say, put myself in a position for full scholarships. But no, if you had said, did I see that coming? I never would have thought that would have happened to me, to be honest with you.
So you torch the city, you take over the city, you get awarded an athletic scholarship to Delaware, and as a freshman, you scored 28 points, and in another game, you hit a game-winning three, and you had 24 points and 12 rebounds that game. How were you able to put together such performances like that as a freshman?
I think it was a bunch of things. I think that after that senior, if I felt like if I could be one of the best players in the city of Philadelphia, I could be one of the best freshmen in the country. I thought I was battle tested from guys that were, really high level Division I players. And then, my confidence. I was always a confident kid as a player. I never lacked it. And then, when I got there, my first day of pickup, it's D1, D1. You're so nervous, and then kind of within the first 10 minutes, to be honest with you, I was like, oh, this won't be that hard. Like, and it sounds arrogant, but it was like some of these dudes in high school were you're just as good, if not better. It was all about kind of finding my footing and learning how to play angles. Obviously, the 24-12 versus Drexel with a game winner, like, those are personal games because that was a city school I felt like I could have played at that didn't take a chance on me. And, there were other games that, I had 25, 28 schools that
Mm.
when I decommitted from Hartford, I was calling, I was one of those kids sending my film out like, yo, I was Catholic MVP. I think I'm worth a look. And no one really bit. And, I kind of used all that as motivation. And then, I grew an inch and a half probably through my freshman year, got stronger, and then ended up really becoming, kind of a scorer. But I think a lot of it was I had great coaches. He's still at Delaware, Martin Inglesby, and they they knew I'd run through a wall for them, any coach. And, they just, it was their first year. They needed people they could trust, and the ball just kind of kept finding my hands. And fortunately I played well and, had a few big games.
Now you had a good year as a freshman, and you end up transferring to St. Joe's. How was it for you to come back home to play in the Big Five?
Yeah. So, I did my 2 years at Delaware, and it was one of those things where it wasn't really the basketball. Like, this was pre-portal, right? So everyone had to redshirt. There was no immediate eligibility, as you know, and kids weren't going to 5 or 6 different schools or weren't chasing money.
Different,
I
yeah.
just wasn't really a fit at Delaware, the school, I'd say. I thought that school was a little bit different than what I was looking for. I thought that was like a big school, and it was hard for me, my personality, to make real friends. So when I transferred, I had some big schools. I had Xavier, NC State. I had a bunch, but, I was molded by, Philly basketball. I was molded by the Catholic League. And, St. Joe's was somewhere my dad played. I grew up going to the games there. So, and playing for Phil Martelli Sr. kind of for me at that point was a no-brainer. And I just wanted to be happy off the court and meet some friends, that I could call lifelong. And, going back to the Big Five, it was nervous. And, you redshirt a whole year. So you kind of think like, oh my God, am I behind? Am I ahead? Or like, people forgetting about me, and once I was able to kind of put that to the side and just be like, just take day by day, like, I think I was able to have a pretty productive career in the Big Five, and I enjoyed the hell out of it every second.
Speaking of production, against Davidson, you scored 28 points, including a game tying three, which ended up #1 on ESPN Sports Center top 10. How was it for you seeing yourself on SC #1? Because that's like the biggest thing when you growing up and you watching, NBA or whatever. Being #1 on Sports Center is like a big deal.
Yeah, so my junior year of high school, Derek went #1. Derek Jones, he dunked on the kid Cody Riley,
Yeah.
that the clip you always see. And for someone who plays the game of basketball the way I did, I knew I wasn't dunking on anyone. So I knew that the top 10 was probably far and away out of my reach. That was a cool moment because, in the moment I didn't realize, and then one of the guys on Davidson in overtime was like, that's going to be a pretty wide known shot. So I didn't realize, get home, my phone's like blowing up. Like, did you see this? Who got a hold of it? Like, a bunch of news outlets got a hold of it. And then I went to go hang out. We were just chilling. The TV came on, and that was on. And I was like, oh, now I'm really feeling it. That was the coolest part about it. I'm like, you see, that's me. But it was cool, man. Memories, it's funny. I never thought basketball would end, and it ends. And then you just kind of, as you start thinking about like different moments of your career, your journey, high school, grades, whatever. And that's one that sticks out to me because I was never going to dunk on anyone. So that was the best way I could get on top 10. And #1's pretty cool, obviously. So, that was a hell of a memory for me.
So you go #1 on SC top 10, and then shortly after that, you put up 35 points in a career high game. Did you ever see yourself scoring 30 points in college?
No, not really. I think I played confidently and aggressively, and I think deep down, because I like to think I watch so much basketball, I know what players really, how good some players are. So, that was a time where I probably didn't see myself getting, 30s. I had a few 30-point games. I never saw my career unfolding the way it did.
Casually saying I had a few 30-point games. Everybody don't get 30.
I know.
I
And I know. And when I look, sometimes when the kids at practice, like, they won't feel my coaching at the time. I'll go look back like, I'm pretty sure I had this against this dude. Like, I was all right. Like, you can listen to me. I know what I'm talking about. But yeah, no, I knew I could score the ball. I never thought that I'd able to, average 20 or whatever, I did for my career, 18 over 4 seasons like that. That's pretty hard to do.
Absolutely. Definitely at Division I level.
Yeah, and I never thought that was even remotely possible. I think everyone who saw me play from 9th through 11th grade, it was more so, this kid is just a monster on the offensive glass. Like, I just played super hard. I was not that talented. And I was, not a great athlete. Actually, I was a bad athlete. You can say it that way. So no, 30 I never saw. I just kind of just kept putting in the work. And eventually, once you crack through, all possibilities are open.
So you have a successful college career. You enter the NBA draft. You go undrafted, but you sign with the Chicago Bulls for the Summer League. How was that experience? Were there any notable players that you played against?
Yeah, no, that whole thing was, I knew I wasn't going to get drafted. I moved down to DC. My agents, they run Team Takeover. They're with Clutch now. So they were So when I walked into the gym the first day of pre-draft, I'm thinking, and it was something I never experienced, like how hard those takeover guys push those, kids from third grade up until the pros, and then I walk into a gym and it's every day it was me, Jeremy Grant, Victor, like all those DC guys,
Mm,
Luka Garza, guys who, Trevor Keels, just like so many high level players. So then that was Lucas pre-draft. We were roommates, so I knew he was going to get drafted. I knew I wasn't. And then when the call came from Chicago, it was kind of like, I knew I wasn't going to play in Europe. I knew I would never go to Europe. It was either kind of NBA or bust. So it wasn't a regular season game, but like there's a picture of me with a jersey that says the Bulls on it. To me, that was really cool. That was something
absolutely.
that like, and I met, when I was there, it would be, every day after practice, Kobe White, Pat Williams, Io DeSumo just gotten drafted,
Mm,
Marcus Simonovic, just guys that, I think out of the 14 guys that were on that summer league or 13, I think 10 of them had already played in the NBA and 3 of them were Io and then me and another kid. So like just the guys that I was around every day to me is like you kind of pinch yourself as a sports fan, like I never grew up saying like ball is life or like I'm going to the league. Like I never said that. So like to me, it was kind of like, yo, how did this end up? How did you end up in this situation? There's butterflies and stuff, but like that, and then going and getting drafted in the G League draft and playing in Detroit, playing against Cade Cunningham and practice, like just kind of guys that, you watch, it's like, dude, these are super max guys and you got a chance to compete against them. That's stuff that I'll, take with me forever.
Now, fast forward a little bit. In 2022, you were hired as an assistant at Albany, and then you did 2 years at Bryant. What made you want to get into coaching?
So I grew up in the business, my grandpa, my dad. But I think going back to what I just kind of talked about my own journey, like when someone has faith and belief in you and you prove them right, which I think I did for some people that kind of vouched for me to get a Division I scholarship, like I'll never forget them. Like no matter if I end up being the head coach of the Boston Celtics in 20 years, or if I end up being, you know, working home from my mom's flower shop, like I'll never forget people who helped me. And I
Mm,
think that, I kind of had this idea. I got cut into G League in February of 2022, and I called a bunch of people, and most people, who know me really, really well, like there's not a player in the NBA I can't tell you where they went to college, what they average, like not one. So I'm just kind of a nerd wired that way. I have every mock draft from 2005 still saved in my house, like that I wrote by pen.
mm,
I do it every year, like, and I felt like I could combine my playing abilities, the business that I grew up in. I moved around for my dad's a bunch, and also I felt like if I went overseas or I tried the G League for 5 or 6 years, the name Ryan Daly in 2035 doesn't mean anything. But when I first got done playing, I still had a little bit of relevancy in the college basketball landscape. And I knew these players in the portal and I transferred. So the way the game was headed, I knew people were going to look for new homes. And I kind of told Dwayne Killings at Albany, who, he's a dear friend, an unbelievable person, kind of changed my whole trajectory, really looked out for me. But I kind of told him like, hey, I've never recruited, but I can tell you I'll be able to recruit a little bit. And so he
mm,
created a position for me. It was a special assistant to the head coach, not a real one. And then within a month, I was offered a different one. I guess word had gotten out that, I was in the business. Someone had offered me an assistant job. And at that point, a guy at Albany had left and he bumped me up because he didn't want me to leave the building. So
mm.
I would say those 2 years and the year at Bryan I spent now going on to year 4, like I don't regret my decision at all. Like, do I miss like competing and really having an ability to dictate a game? Yeah. Or talking crazy to someone and like killing them. Yeah. I miss that. But like, the idea of like taking kids and helping them achieve their dreams, whether it's basketball or just graduation, as you know, a lot of kids, that's not really their focus, and a lot of kids, if they make it to college, and seeing kids from different backgrounds, different walks of life, hardships they've gone through, walk across stage and graduate, like, that's a rewarding feeling and it's kind of addicting, to be honest with you. So that's all I do now.
I'm still trying to figure out how a guy won PCL MVP, averaged 22 points, and the scholarship was hard to come by. Rather, like I'm
And
confused
that's
at
the
that.
old days too, where they're taking high school freshmen. That's how
Yeah,
fat they thought I was. That's how fat they
that's
thought I
crazy.
was. Yeah, it's crazy, man.
That's crazy. You're now at VCU. What's the culture like there? And how's the weather down in Virginia?
It's better. It's nice weather. I was in Albany, and then I went to Providence, and now I'm here. So I've gone 4 hours north of Philly, and now I'm 4 hours south. I love the weather here. VCU is a special place. You see why they're constantly successful when you're here, and that's been between multiple different coaching staffs, multiple different players. Like just the regime of it, the dedication from the administration to the fan base, like it's second to none. They really live, sleep, breathe, eat everything VCU basketball. Richmond's a place that's interesting because you're about 3 hours away from, Charlotte. You're about 2.5 from DC, so there's no real pro market that you're fighting against. So, VCU basketball after the Final Four 15 years ago has kind of taken off, and you see it when you're here that everything they do is trying to be the best in the country and be excellent, and hopefully we can continue that tradition.
Mm. Now, I'm an alumni of the MOTEP Charter Panthers.
Yeah.
I wear that badge of being the worst player ever there to get a scholarship. My guy, Ahmad Noel, is now in the Ram. How are you looking up there?
He's looking good, man. When I first called him when this happened to us, and then he put his name in the portal, there's probably 72 hours. And he was just someone that I thought because I recruited Mekhi Taylor, who was his teammate at Imhotep. So I had been around Ahmad before recruiting Mekhi. And I know Tashid very well. I know people that are close to him well. And honestly, to be honest with you, everything that people have said about him as a human has checked out then some. And then that's not even the basketball side. He's great to be around every day. He competes, and also he's a really good player. And it helps when you have good players and good people. When you can combine both, there's bad people who are good players. There's good people who are bad players. When you can get one that's both good player and good person, the sky's the limit. I think he's, it took me about 2 phone calls for him to be like, I just went through failure, and failure is subjective. I put that in quotes because it's the first time I tell all our kids who transfer down or up, you didn't fail, or you weren't great, or you weren't bad. It wasn't the right opportunity. And I know he was well coached from high school, from Brother Andre, team final, and then Danny Hurley. He had good coaches, so I knew he'd be coachable. It took me about 2 phone calls, and he was kind of saying oh, I can't wait. And I was like, what do you mean you can't wait? What are we getting at? You saying you're coming? And then eventually he ended up coming, man. It's been a great addition for our program, for our staff. And I think it's been good for him because I think he's getting that joy and that confidence back. And every day he's kind of just, getting the rust off, or, getting back to gameplay. And we're extremely happy. We're extremely happy Ahmad Noel's here because he's a winner, man. He makes shots, he defends, he passes, he talks. He was everything I thought he was, he is. And that's the best compliment I can have.
Yeah, I agree. I tell people all the time, he's a good basketball player. He's an even better person. So I'm definitely happy you guys got a chance to, connect with Ahmad. What are some of the team goals for this upcoming season?
I think with a new staff, 9 new faces, 5 returners who, mean so much to the program, I think it's to win a championship. And we'll have opportunities to play in the Bahamas Championship. We'll have an Atlantic 10 regular season championship. We'll have an Atlantic 10 postseason championship, and then there'll be an NCAA tournament. I think that's the goal because if that's what they're used to here. They're so used to winning and winning. That's the goal. I want all of our players to grow and mesh, and it's hard in this new era because you're kind of throwing a bunch of toys in a pot, stirring it up in your June to October preseason, and November the lights are on. I mean, we have an exhibition versus Nova October 19th, Sunday at Villanova. So that's 12 days away. It's real. So I think our goals are to get better every day and try to work towards a championship. And I think it's doable with this group, with the players that we've added, the players that VCU returned. I think it's certainly doable. But if you don't mesh off the court, you don't mesh on the court, in my opinion. So I think that the biggest goal is to be the best team we can be, come March.
Now, Coach, I know you had a long day, so I'm going to let you go. But before I let you go, I like to have all the coaches drop a jewel on the players and parents who's, coming up. What does it take to become a Division I athlete?
I think every situation is different, but I think the one common denominator that 99 away from all the genetic lottery, as you know, there's people that hit the genetic lottery and there's no chance they can fail. I think the 99 percenters, there needs to be a unbelievable resiliency. I can't tell you, I probably cried in my mom's arms my sophomore and junior year of high school, 10 to 15 times, yo, these coaches don't like me. No one calls my phone. All these kids are getting offers. But I kind of just never stopped, competing, and I never listened. I think resiliency is the number one thing you need. And I also would tell the parents, coaches are judged by winning and losing. they want the best players to play. If their opinion is that the best like they want to win. So like
Agreed.
there's not a coach in the country that's going to try to not win basketball games. And if they feel like your kid is the best player or the ninth best player, that's their right. And my parents, like my dad grew up a coach. My parents, I ended up being an 1,800 point scorer in 3 years of college basketball. My parents never in one time from grade school till the last day I got cut from the LA Clippers G League team in February, ever called a coach one time. And I don't know if that's the reason I became a decent player, but I also know that the parents and the kids that are kind of trying to make excuses, oh, coach isn't doing this, or, I'm not getting starting reps, or, and they build these preconceived notions, you're never going to be the player you're supposed to be. I mean, if you go out there and compete, like, you'll always max out. And and that's the one thing, like, I know you said you let me go. Like, this is another thing for parents too, like, and kids. Like, there is nothing wrong with being a Division II full scholarship, a Division III part. If you play college basketball and that is your admission into college, that is a blessing. That is a blessing. There's 400 NBA players in the world. There's 8 billion people in the world. That's
and I don't know if I'm supposed to say this because you actually hit me one time. I was like, yo, hey, what about this kid? I'm like, he might can't play at this level, but I'd got some Division II opportunities for him. So like that's a real thing. And I tell parents all the time, like, just build relationships because like that Division I coach who's scouting somebody else on your team might know a Division II or Division III coach
knows everyone.
Go to alley oop.
Yeah, sure. And that's where I like to, and I think maybe that's my background of being an under-recruited, overlooked kid. Like, as I think I've messaged you on a few kids, like, this kid looks good. Let's find him an opportunity. Like, not everyone's a VCU level player. Not everyone's a Division II level player, but we can find spots for people as long as, everyone goes about things the right way. It's when people start getting different ideas and, feeling like they can stick their nose up, at opportunities. When I was a junior in high school, I would have crawled for a Division II scholarship. I would have crawled anywhere. Like, that's how hungry I was. And just stay in the moment. Don't look too far forward. Don't look backwards. Like, every day just needs to be building towards the long-term goal. And don't get in your own way. Don't give, a disciplinarian a reason to tell a coach, like, yeah, he's a great kid, but, he was late 45 times and, he pulled a fire alarm to try to be funny. Like, just keep your nose clean, and be grateful for any opportunity. I answered Division III coaches the same way when I transferred from Delaware. I answered coaches of Blue Bloods. Like, I always did, because I think this basketball world, as you know, is so small and fragile. Like, you don't want people saying different things about you, because then no one has a uniform idea of what it is. And I know I have flaws, but, I always like to think I answered every coach's call with respect, because, they took the time to recruit me.
And some coaches get it wrong because they almost let a kid who scored 1,800 points in 3 years walk.
I have a list on my phone. I have a list. I'm so competitive. I have a list. No, I have and everyone, if anyone sees this who knows me, they know who's on the list. They know, that's part of my competitive, nightmare that I am. I coaches get it wrong sometimes.
You got to have that fire as a coach. You got to have that fire.
Oh, and now it's funny. I see some of them on the road, and I'm like, 7 years ago, you thought I wasn't good enough? Damn. Like, looking back, I think I could have played at that level. Like, so, basketball, man, it's awesome, man. It gives us an opportunity to talk, gives kids an opportunity to get a free education. It's the most beautiful thing in the world if you're good to it.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you for taking time out your day to be on air with Rare. And I hope you guys dare to be Rare all season, have a great season, and go Rams.
Yeah, one thing I'll say, like, for you, and I don't know if it's still rolling, like, the coverage you do with your videos I have probably stored 10 to 15 kids' names in my phone bank from their 2030s, 2024s, like, just throughout the years. Like, you've given people platforms, and that it's very valuable. So you should be commended for all you do, because I know the time and resources you spend on this, you might not see, people aren't thanking you for videos. They should be, you're bringing awareness to kids, and for you should be saluted and congratulated, because, I can tell you, like, firsthand, there's kids that I've seen on your clips that I've either sent to Division II coaches or I've stored in my phone bank. They'll eventually be in the portal, or they'll eventually do this. So you should be commended for that, because I know in your world, similar to mine, is that thanks doesn't really come till later, or at all, if at all. So the platform and the spotlight you're giving these kids is extremely valuable, because it's giving guys like me a pulse on the city, or a pulse on kids when you're not there every day and you're 4 hours away. So I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate all the coverage you do for Philadelphia, because it's real. I miss it. And, a small part of my day is cool because I get to see your videos of kids, playing. So, you should be commended for that as well.
Well, I appreciate you, Coach, and hopefully I can catch a game this season. Check you guys out in that beautiful arena you guys have down in Virginia, and enjoy the weather because it'll be cold down here. It'll be cold
Yeah,
up
no
here.
doubt. Hey, you can come down here. Let's go. Let's go, Rams, though. Got to root for VCU if you come
Yeah,
down.
yes, sir. Go Rams. Appreciate you, Coach.
Go, Rams, later.
Talk to you.